What do you see as a good movie for Goldie Hawn, the actress, and Goldie Hawn, the producer?
Oh, that's a very good question, because a lot of times being a producer kind of cancels out your career as an actress in a way, because you want to make movies. As a producer, you want to make movies that are worthwhile. You want to assume a certain responsibility for the company in which is funding you.
There is a photo of Goldie Hawn that most people have seen. She is laughing. Her eyes are bright. Her smile is so big it fills the whole frame. When people look at that photo, they assume she is the one who figured it all out. But the truth is much harder than that. Goldie Hawn spent nearly 50 years in Hollywood. She won an Oscar. She made some of the most beloved movies of her generation. She became one of the most recognized faces on Earth. And during all of it, she was quietly learning something painful, that even the most successful woman in the room can be treated like she doesn't belong there. Over the years, in interviews and through the people closest to her, a picture has slowly emerged. There were 6 powerful actors who made her career harder than it needed to be. 6 men who used their fame, their humor, their authority, or their legend to make her feel small. And what makes their stories worth telling is not the drama of them. It is how ordinary that kind of treatment was for women of her generation. It was not exceptional. It was Tuesday.
She never looked back, and she is a pure, whatever you want to call it, you call it stars, whatever. But I think that she is a star.
I didn't feel joyful. I was scared. I was afraid. And it wasn't anxiety. They were like panic attacks.
Yeah.
Which are different.
Cancels out your career as an actress in a way, because you want to make movies. As a producer, you want to make movies that are worthwhile. You want to assume a certain responsibility for the company in which is funding you.
Let's start with Bill Murray. Bill Murray built his whole career on being unpredictable. To his fans, that made him exciting. To the people who had to work alongside him, it was often a very different story. By the late 1980s, Murray's reputation in the industry was already complicated. Directors, producers, and co-stars had quietly noted a pattern. Scenes rewritten without warning, schedules ignored, and a sharp sense of humor that sometimes felt more like a weapon than a joke. For Goldie, who had always valued a calm and respectful set, people close to her say his energy was simply impossible to be around. She did not make a public speech about it. She did not call a reporter. She simply stopped accepting work on any project where his name was attached. In Hollywood, that kind of quiet exit carries real weight. Years later, when stories from other actresses about Murray's on-set behavior began reaching the public, many people in the industry were not surprised. They said Goldie had already understood what it took everyone else years to finally say out loud. Then there was Warren Beatty. In the 1970s, Warren Beatty was one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. He was handsome, charming, and connected to almost every major studio in the city. He was also, by many accounts, a man who did not handle the word no very gracefully. Goldie was not interested in becoming part of his personal world. She was polite, she was professional, and she was firm. According to people who watched it happen, that firmness had consequences. Opportunities that had seemed certain began to fall away. Producers who had been warm suddenly went quiet. One of the oldest games in Hollywood, using influence to quietly punish someone who refused to play along, appeared to be in motion. Goldie talked about this kind of experience later in general terms, telling interviewers that women in Hollywood learned very early how power worked and how fast it could be turned against them. She never named Beatty directly in those conversations. She did not need to. The people around her already knew the story. Dustin Hoffman came next. Hoffman was the kind of actor who believed that the search for truth in a performance justified almost anything. His methods were extreme, and his behavior on set was, by the accounts of many people who worked with him, deeply difficult. Goldie had spent years being called the funny blonde. Talented, yes, but not serious. She wanted to prove she could do real dramatic work. So when the chance came to read opposite Hoffman for a major film, she prepared carefully and showed up ready. What happened in that room was not a creative exchange between equals. Hoffman's approach to auditions and rehearsals was well known for being more about dominance than discovery. The feedback Goldie received in front of a room full of male producers was not constructive. It was a verdict. Her dramatic ability was dismissed before she had even finished. She left with her head up and her voice steady. But the experience confirmed something she had been fighting her entire career. That in too many rooms, the decision about what a woman could or could not do had already been made before she walked through the door. She went on to prove them wrong without ever needing that room or that man again. Chevy Chase brought another challenge. On paper, Foul Play in 1978 should have been a great experience. Two of comedy's biggest names, a fun script, and a real budget. But Chevy Chase arrived on set carrying something that had nothing to do with the movie. A need to be the most important person in every single scene. His reputation for difficult behavior had already followed him out of Saturday Night Live. Co-stars, directors, and crew members from multiple productions have since described the same patterns. Dismissiveness, competitiveness, and a particular discomfort when the attention in the room shifted to someone else. For Goldie, who simply wanted to do the work well, working through every day of that shoot was exhausting. She finished the film professionally. She did not walk away from her commitment. But she never chose to be in that position again. Years later, the behind-the-scenes reality of working with Chevy Chase became one of Hollywood's most discussed open secrets, confirmed by cast members from his films and his television work alike. Goldie had simply learned the lesson earlier and more quietly than most. Sean Penn presented yet another dynamic. Penn has never been an easy man to share a room with. His intensity, the quality that made him one of the greatest actors of his generation, also made him one of the most combative public figures in Hollywood. Mental health awareness was something Goldie had dedicated real time and energy to long before it became a common Hollywood cause. She helped establish the Mind a P program for children and spent years building it into something real, something that actually mattered to her. Not as a public gesture, but as a private mission she'd been quietly working on for years before anyone was paying attention. At a charity event where she was speaking about this work, Penn's visible and audible disrespect toward her remarks, witnessed by people in attendance, was not forgotten. For a woman who had faced dismissal her entire career, being mocked in a room where she was trying to do genuine good was a specific kind of insult. She did not confront him publicly. She simply made sure their paths did not cross again. That decision, friends say, cost her nothing she wanted to keep. And then there was the final name, Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is Hollywood history. There is no question about that. But history can also be the heaviest thing in a room. Used not to inspire the people around you, but to remind them that your name is bigger than theirs. By the late 1990s, Kirk Douglas had been a legend for so long that some people around him seemed to believe it gave him the right to define everyone else's place in any conversation. For Goldie, who by that point had her own Oscar, her own decades of work, and her own unquestionable place in the industry, being repeatedly talked over and talked past in a public setting by a man leaning on his legacy was not a small thing. The accounts from people who were present describe a pattern, not one sharp moment, but a steady, rolling reminder that in his mind, she was still a supporting role in someone else's story. Kirk Douglas passed away in 2020. He leaves behind a complicated legacy, one that has grown more complicated with time as more accounts of his behavior toward women have become part of the public record. Goldie never added her voice to that record directly. Her silence by then was a statement on its own. So we are left with 6 men. 6 different ways of doing the same thing. Murray used comedy to cut people down. Beatty used power to punish rejection. Hoffman used intellectual authority to dismiss talent he found threatening. Chase used daily competition to drain the people around him. Penn used public contempt to belittle serious work. Douglas used legend status to erase the accomplishments of the people sharing his space. The tool was always different. The result was always the same. A woman was supposed to feel smaller. What is remarkable about Goldie Hawn is not that these things happened to her. They happened to nearly every woman in Hollywood of her generation. What is remarkable is what she did with them. She did not become bitter. She did not disappear. She did not trade her warmth for armor. She just became very, very selective about who she gave her time and energy to. She built her own production company. She raised 3 children who became successful on their own terms. She created Mind Up and brought mindfulness education to hundreds of thousands of children around the world. She is, at 79, genuinely still shining. That is not luck. That is the result of a woman who understood something early. The people who try to make you feel worthless are telling you everything about themselves and nothing about you. And the most powerful thing you can do in response is not to fight them on their terms. It is simply outgrow the room they tried to keep you in. Walk away. Build something. Keep smiling, not because everything is fine, but because you refuse to let them take that too. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and support the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear what you think.